so it's day 38, and I can already tell this is probably going to be a good one for me. The quote is, "If I waited for perfection, I would never write a word." And so the question is, are you a perfectionist? If so, in what ways, and how does this affect your life? How do you feel about the idea of perfection? And if you're following along, I encourage you to follow along. Those past videos I've been saying, pause here and write out your response, but if you don't want to write it out, I would just, kind of pause and take a few minutes to just think about the question and what you think about it and how you would respond. And I'll be back on here in a second with what I responded. Okay, so perfectionism. We'll see what I wrote, because again, I wrote this a few months ago, but I know perfectionism is something that I suffer with, and I've recently, within the past couple of years, realized that I'm one of those that procrastinates partially because of this perfectionist thing, I think. Anyway, I haven't been to therapy or anything about it, but that's just what I think. But let's see. So this is the first question. Are you a perfectionist? Yes. And then in what ways? I said, when I get focused on things, I hyper-focus and pay very close attention to detail. I want things to be right and perfect and the best they can be. However, in recent years, this has held me back in a lot of ways, particularly with work and school. This aspect, coupled with what I perceive to be an undiagnosed ADHD, has resulted in my procrastinating on tasks that appear too big, than not being able to complete them because I want them to be perfect, but I don't have time to make them even acceptable. In the past, this process was fine. It actually worked well because by procrastinating, I didn't have time to make things perfect, but I at least had time to finish with a decent product. Underneath, I've always felt I could do better, but felt good about what I was able to accomplish in such a limited time. But as I've gotten older and have moved up higher in schoolwork, this has not been working out all the time anymore. Thankfully, I have a good boss who is understanding and kind, but who also pushes me just enough. I hope that I can do better. So yeah, that's exactly, what I still feel now. I don't know. I was actually watching some YouTube videos. There's this doctor, is it Dr. K? I don't know. I've come across a few of his videos, and I think he streams on Twitch quite a bit. And I think he's kind of talks to a lot of, it seems like mostly men in the gamer community, but he's talking a lot about mental health sort of things, because I think he's a psychiatrist. But I watched this video yesterday about ADHD, and I just, everything sounds like me. Everything sounds exactly like me. And he was even talking about how kind of students who were high achievers sometimes that don't seem like they have ADHD, you don't know what's going on inside their brains if they're not showing the outward symptoms of ADHD. They're finding that there's a lot of people that their brains were still going like someone with ADHD, just not coming out. And I definitely feel like the more I learn about ADHD, I just never thought to look into it because I always thought ADHD was the stereotypical, kid that can't sit still in class, that's always talking, and you can tell their mind is moving really fast and they want to say all this stuff. And I was not that kid in school at all outwardly. But even though I did well in school and it seemed like I was focused and listening, I would be zoned out. I would be zoned out in class most of the time, unless there was a teacher that was just really engaging and what they were talking about was super interesting. I would be focusing on people's shoes mostly. I don't know. I had a thing for shoes in school. I would be focused on people's shoes. If I was taking notes, I was more focused on my handwriting and how I was organizing the notes and not actually taking in the information. Yeah, I don't know. And the guy, in that video, he made such a good point. He was like, people with ADHD, like, well, not all people, like, there's different, I think it's a spectrum, but it just explained like perfectly how my brain worked, because I always was like, everybody would tell me I was smart, and I'm like, but I'm not that smart. I'm just really good at memorizing things at the last minute, spitting it out, and then it's gone from my mind. I'm not learning anything. I knew that I wasn't learning anything. I knew that I was just doing good at tests the way the American system was set up at the time. That's what I was good at, and I never felt like I was actually smart. And he said that it's like you have he said it's like you don't have the part of your, so he like likened it to a computer, but your computer, say you have a Word document in your computer, you don't have the option to save it. So like whenever you get on a task, you get hyper focused because you can't stop on it, because it's that if you like let your attention go elsewhere, that you're not going to get back and finish it. And then kind of the other way around, when your brain is looking for things to focus on, it's just like, basically he said people like that plow through school and can do well in school sometimes because they're just storing everything in RAM. They've got like a million folders open, which I actually do on my browser all the time. I keep like a million like browser screens open, whatever you call it, tabs open on my browser. I'll keep like 10 Excel spreadsheets open, because I'm afraid that if I close them, that I will forget that this is something important that I need to get back to. Like, I'm not good at multitasking, and I've got to kind of focus on one thing at a time and get it done. And if it's something that is so big that I don't feel like I can finish it in one sitting, I guess, I don't know. It just seems to, I don't do it, or I have trouble getting started doing it, and I want to wait till the right time. I want to wait till I have enough time to finish it. And typically I don't get that until like the last minute. But I've been posting some videos about how I've been using a habit tracker, and I think that different things work for different people, and I've tried a lot of different things. And with all these things, like, things may work for a few days, maybe even a week or two, and they just fall off. But this habit tracker for me has been something that has been working for me. I've tried all the apps. I've tried the ones, because there's similar apps to this where you put, the goals or the habits you want, and then you get into streaks and you don't want to break the streak, and, all this stuff. But I never stuck into logging into the app. And I think paper, like pen and paper, is what personally works for me. And color coding things, that's what always worked with my notes. Whenever I was in high school and taking notes, I would have different colored pens and I would use different colors, and that's what would kind of like keep my attention focused. And for some reason, well, here, I have the habit tracker here. For some reason, this seems to like really be helping me get through my procrastination, because it's something that I just keep on my desk and I turn to every day, and I go through and I just fill it out with different colors, and it just keeps me focused on the habits that I want to build. And I've tried to build habits that would keep me from procrastinating. And I know this is about perfectionism, but I realize that I'm a perfectionist and I procrastinate partially because of that, because there's just literally been times that I would be so hyper focused on like writing a report or writing a paper, and I would just turn it in just thinking like, this is so bad. Like I would just like, there was so many flaws in it. I knew there were so many flaws in it when I turned it in, and just thinking that it wasn't that good because I was so hyper focused on making it perfect. And then I would come back to it later and read over it, and I'm like, I don't even know where this stuff came from. Like, this sounds so good. Like, what was I upset about? Like, why did I think that this paper was bad? And it's because when I was in that hyper focus mode, I was focusing on perfection, and when really it was already pretty good, and I was just being too critical and too hyper focused on it. So yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah. But it's been like a good thing and a bad thing, you know. It's been bad because of the stress and because I tend to put things off and never feel like anything's quite done. But also I do have like crazy attention to detail, and I think that's one thing that my boss values in me is that she knows that when she gives me something, even if it takes me a while to get to it, or you know, it's like down to the wire, she knows that I'm gonna do a good job, that I'm gonna look at everything, and it'll be rare for me to miss things. For instance, if we're working on a paper with a bunch of people, I'll be the one that'll catch kind of like the minor mistakes and everything that are in it. So I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but yeah, I feel a lot better about it now that I'm finding ways to kind of manage it. And I think what he was saying in the video was it has to do with, I think there's a part of the video that talks about perfectionism, but I didn't get all the way through that yet. But it's talking a lot about executive function and how it's kind of hard to prioritize like what's most important, and you know, when you can do things. And I think I've definitely struggled with executive function, but it's been okay. It got a little bit out of control last fall, and I really felt like I just felt like I was constantly drowning for like 2 years, like basically ever since I started my PhD. I just constantly felt like I could never get caught up, and literally felt like I was drowning. I totally understood when people said, you know, they feel like they can't keep their head above the water. And that was exactly how I felt. And I just was not able to get myself to do these tasks. And even though I tried and I was so stressed about it, and I just really, for whatever reason, could not get myself to do these certain things. And it just like came to a head last fall. But this year things have gotten so much better, and I don't really know what exactly I did. It's just I've been trying to keep up with my habit tracker. I think waking up early has helped. Forcing myself to read and study at least 30 minutes every day, even though it's only 30 minutes, like it seems to keep me ahead in my classes. Just building that into a routine in the morning, and being able to stick to it finally. And as bad as it is to say this, like, I've been taking sleeping aids at night, and that's really helped, just over the counter stuff, and just getting I mean, these are all just like things that it should be common sense, you know, that everyone says, you know, wake up early, have a good morning routine, get a lot of sleep. But I don't think anyone talks about, you know, how to do that. And like, and it's not it's easier for some people. It's easier said than done. And, you know, I didn't have a lot of structure when I was growing up, and I don't necessarily blame it on that, you know, but I didn't. My mom was the type that was always late for things and wasn't really self-motivated for stuff. And I don't know, I just wasn't taught those habits. And so it's been a struggle to try to build, you know, kind of some good life habits. And it is, I mean, it's as simple as that. All those things that people say that you should do, you know, eat right, exercise, wake up early, get plenty of rest. Since I've started doing all those things seem to be a lot better. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, and just I've been trying to not be a perfectionist. Like, I think just recognizing that has helped me a lot, because I will tell myself going into things like, just start it. Don't worry if it's perfect, like just get it started. And you know, it doesn't work all the time, but it has worked in some cases where it'll just telling me that it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to get finished right now, has in some cases helped me get over it a little bit. So yeah, anyway, that's day 38. I will be back tomorrow with day 39.